Hello, good afternoon, sir. Hello, my name is Pinky Wijaya. My name is 2022 12 10 43. Today, I want to tell the allocate resource adapting to climate change. Climate change is here. Beyond doing everything we can to cut emission and slow the pace of global warming, we must adapt to climate consequence so we can protect ourselves and our communities. The fall of forests depending on where you live. It might mean fire or floods, drought, hotter or colder day or sea level rise. What can you do? There are many ways to adapt to what is happening and what will happen. Individual can take some simple measures. You can plant or preserve trees around your home, for instance, to keep temperature cooler inside. Clearing brush might reduce fire hazard. If you own a business, start thinking about and planning around possible climate risks, such as hot days that prevent workers from doing outside tasks. Everyone should be aware of the possibly greater potential for natural disaster, where they live and what resources they have in case this happens. That might mean purchasing insurance in advance or knowing where you can get disaster information and relief during a crisis. Climate change is here. Beyond doing everything we can to cut emission and slow the pace of global warming, we must adapt to climate consequences so we can protect ourselves and our communities. Gearing up for big change, given the scale of climate change and the fact that it will affect many areas of life, adaptation also needs to take place on a greater scale. Our economy and societies as a whole needs to become more resilient to climate impact. This will require large-scale effort, many of which will be orchestrated by government. Roads and bridges may need to be built or adapted to withstand higher temperature and more powerful storms. Some cities on coastline may have to establish systems to prevent flooding in street and underground transport. Mountainous regions may have to find ways to limit landslide and overflow from melting glaciers. Some communities may even need to move to new location because it will be too difficult to adapt. This is already happening in some island countries facing rising seas. Spending now save life and reduce costs later on. If all of this sounds expensive, it is. But the important thing to remember is that we already know a lot about how to adapt. More is being learned every day. Further, investing in adaptation makes a lot more sense than waiting and trying to catch up later. As many countries have learned during the COVID-19 pandemic, protecting people now save more life and reduce risk. Moving forward, it makes financial sense to because the longer we wait, the more the cost will escalate. Think about this globally. 1.x trillion dollar investment in early warning system, climate resilience, infrastructure, improved agriculture, global mangrove protecting along coastline and resilient water resource called generate $7.1 trillion through a combination of avoided costs and a variety of social and environmental benefits. Universal access to early warning system can deliver benefit up to 10 times the initial cost. And if more farms install solar power irrigation, use new crop variety, had access to weather alert system and to other adaptive measures, the world would avoid a drop-off in global agricultural yield of up to 30% by 2050. What have countries agreed to do? All parties to the Paris Agreement commit to strengthening the global response to climate change by increasing the ability of all to adapt and build resilience and reduce vulnerability. At COP26, countries adopt the Glasgow Climate Pact, which called for a doubling of finance to support developing countries in adapting to the impact of climate change and building resilience. Glasgow also established a work program to define a global goal on adaptation, which will identify collective needs and solutions to the climate crisis already affecting many countries. Since 2000, 2012, under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, a number of countries have developed national adaptation plans. Make it happen. A number of efforts are underway to help people adapt to climate change. One is the Global Adaptation Fund, which finances pioneering initiatives in developing countries. You can see if your country has a project and watch how adaptation works for fisher people in Peru who are combining traditional knowledge and technology to protect their livelihoods. In Ghana, women farmers are adapting to increasingly erratic rainfall by diversifying their livelihoods. With new skills, they are producing agricultural products such as soy meal and sea butter that fetch higher price in local market. Farmers in Bosnia and Herzegovina have adjusted crop choice to deal with droughts, such as by moving from apple to warmer weather pitch. In the Maldives, declining rainfall and hotter summer have required construction large rainwater tanks and desalination facilities to process seawater, while setting up systems to carefully track water use and trigger early warnings of dry periods. Sri Lanka is repurposing an ancient system of water tanks to keep water flowing to farm and home. Many solutions to climate change live in nature. For an example of so-called nature-based solution, find out how communities in Djibouti are staying safe by building flood walls. They are also restoring mangrove forests, which protects against sea level rise, provide food for people, and offer a haven for plants and animals. In Vietnam, coastal farmers have turned from collecting increasingly scarce marine resources such as snails and crabs to developing beekeeping linked to mangrove restoration. It might seem like nature-based solutions are mostly for the countryside, but cities are also boosting resilience by turning to nature. In El Salvador, the capital, San Salvador, aim to become a sponge city by restoring surrounding forests to limit landslide and floods, and improving drainage in ways that mimic natural streams and rivers. Just that from me. Sorry if I make a mistake. Thank you.